In case you wanted to know all of the details on how much money the studio is spending on certain episodes, what their budget is, and who is the highest paid actor on the show, then you better keep on watching. That's because today we'll be talking about The Flash budget, insane growth in visual effects, and cast salaries. Let's dive right into it, shall we? What's the show's budget? That's the burning question we all want answered. How much money does the cast and crew have in the bank to film one of these shows? We see a huge cast, characters coming and going in and out of the show, and with about 200 deaths throughout the seasons, these guys must be working with some serious dough, right? Well, it depends on who you're asking. If you ask an average Joe what he thinks about The Flash's budget per season, he will say that this is an exorbitant amount of money. However, if you ask a show like Game of Thrones, then the show's budget is actually peanuts. I mean, one episode of this show is actually $15 million, so go figure. But in any case, we still haven't got to the figure, so here it is. The Flash is reportedly spending about $3 million per episode. Multiply that by 23, and you've got $69 million. Let's round it up to about $70 million, just for the sake of simplicity. Now, while some of you might think this is a lot of money, when compared to the industry average, it's actually not that much. And there were some shows who got more than enough funding, and they still blew it. We're not going to be naming any names here. Daredevil? That's right, Daredevil actually had a per episode budget that was $14 million. That's close to the episode budget of Game of Thrones. And we're not even going to talk about the quality. But this isn't HBO. CW doesn't really have the budget that HBO can give to their shows. So the producers and the creators have to learn to make ends meet. To get the most out of their money, the show had to be filmed in Vancouver, Canada. This saved them a ton of money on filming and also gave the show some beneficial tax breaks. Also, yay Canada! But where does all of this money go? Well, for that, we will have to look at smashing that like button if you haven't done so already. But no, we actually have to look at how much money the stars make. What part of that is for the props, how big of a cut the VFX team will take, and of course, marketing. We know that's a lot of info, but let's start with the first one. How much do the stars make? Since the show has risen in popularity, there have been some increases in the paycheck of some actors on The Flash. The first one we're going to talk about is Grant Gustin. That's right, the first person we wanted to cover in this video is the Flash himself. According to one post from Variety, Grant Gustin makes $100,000 every episode. Now, this post was back in 2018, so we could say that his paycheck has presumably risen since then. First of all, we know that Grant Gustin has been with the show since day one, and he has appeared in all of the 133 episodes throughout the 6 seasons. If we multiply the number of episodes by the $100,000 per episode, then we get $13.3 million. But there's a problem. If we go to Celebrity Net Worth, we see that Grant actually has only $5 million. So where are the rest of the $13.3 million? Did Grant spend it all? To be honest, he never earned that amount of money. We're doing the math with $100,000 per episode. What we're not realizing is the fact that Grant Gustin was earning a lot less in the beginning. That would explain the net worth dilemma. Now, as for the other actors, we don't really know how much they're making. There's not much information online about the paychecks of Candice Patton, Danielle Panabaker, Tom Cavanaugh, and Carlos Valdez. So we're going to assume that their salaries are somewhere in the range of $50,000 per episode. That's not unreasonable when we factor in the fact that similar shows on the CW network make around that much. With that out of the way, we're still wondering, how much money does the VFX team take? Now, it's not a secret that there's a lot of VFX on The Flash. I mean, not an episode goes by that we don't see some CGI. For example, there's always the zapping. It's a constant throughout the show, and this is the cheapest visual effect that the team does. There are much more complex moments and scenes that have to pass through some digital editing software in order to give them the special touch. Here, we would have to mention the moving rocks every time Barry zooms by, those puddles of water, the panoramic shots of the city where our favorite Scarlet Speedster chases some of his villains, as well as a ton of others. All of these scenes have to be edited. We as fans don't really notice all of the work that went on in the background, and in some way, that's probably for the better. The ideal VFX is one you don't really think about. How does The Flash compare to other shows? The visual effects budget of Arrow is literally a tenth of Supergirl and The Flash. It's a lot of stunt work. It's all practical by design, said Kevin Smith, who has directed episodes on both The Flash and Supergirl. Since both shows are part of the Arrowverse, we thought it would be cool to compare them. But according to one of the directors, The Flash is in a league of its own when it comes to the show. There's a lot of visual effects on the show. It has to have them if it wants to function properly. But does Arrow actually use no VFX? Well, not really. The show has their moments. They need VFX to simulate some of the arrows and the explosions on the show. But Barry Allen zaps through town more often than Oliver Queen shoots his arrows, and the VFX for both stunts are in different universes. One of the most expensive scenes to film. One of the most expensive scenes to film in the entire show was when Barry Allen was fighting against Salivar, the white gorilla that was undefeated king of the Gorilla Coliseum. And even the visual effects team agrees that this show was actually really expensive to shoot. It's a CGI sequence that's 10 times longer than the longest CGI sequence they did on the show. So it's not surprising that the creation of Gorilla City was actually a daunting task that pushed the show to their budgeting limits. Everything from the gorilla statues to the Gorilla Coliseum to the gorillas themselves, it was all perfectly done. It made us feel like we were actually inside the deep Amazonian rainforest instead of looking at a computer screen. Now, we should mention that Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was only about 2 hours long, had 8 apes in the whole movie, and it still cost the production house about $130 million to produce. This wasn't a 2-hour movie, but it was still difficult to pull off. The executive producer, Aaron Helbing, just said, "We see where Grodd was sent. We'll see his standing amongst the other gorillas. There are some sequences in the 2 episodes that are unbelievable. They're epic and unbelievable in scale and scope. I've never seen anything like it on television." And he was 100% right. There was so much detail on the gorillas that they were eventually forced to kill off the villain. Just having Grodd on the show dug a huge hole in their budget that they could barely fill. Can you believe the VFX team had to draw every strand of hair on Gorilla Grodd by hand? On a related note, we wanted to know if you've noticed the improvements in the quality of visual effects. You can tell us in the comment section below. If you'd like more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of them. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.